Hello, everyone. Today is Monday, March 25th, and this is the Daily Fantasy 5, where I bring you the 5 things you need to know every day in the world of fantasy sports. And today we have an extra special bonus, my top 20 QB rankings for the 2019 fantasy football season. Before we get to any of that, let's talk about our sponsor, www.mathradio.com, bringing you math courses for your children ages 7 through 17. If they need to get better grades, if they need to get higher test scores, or if they even need to get into college, go to www.mathradio.com to pick up an online math course for as little as $9.99. Be the hero of your household by going to www.mathradio.com. So let's get to it. Today we've got baseball news, we got football news, and of course we have basketball news before we get to our top 20 quarterbacks. So let's start with baseball. The Atlanta Braves have announced that they are going to start 2 rookies in their starting rotation. Bryce Wilson is 21. He has a 3.29 ERA this spring. And Kyle Wright, this one's a little bit surprising. He is 23 with a 7.11 ERA this spring, but he does have 18 strikeouts in 12 innings. At the end of a fantasy draft, especially a deep draft, one of these guys might be worth, $1 or $2. But which one? I don't know. Would I be gambling on either of them? Probably not. But there are 2 starting pitchers who could have value going forward. The next player I want to talk about is another pitcher. He is a closer, Derek Holland. He was announced as the closer with Arizona Diamondbacks. However, he has had a 12.27 ERA this spring. He was terrible with the Cards last year. He was a little bit better with the Nationals, but I do not trust, I think it's Greg Holland. I said Derek Holland earlier. Anyway, his last name is Holland. He's pitched for the Cardinals and some other teams. He stinks. He's only on a 1-year deal, so the Diamondbacks have no incentive to stay with him. They have guys like Archie Bradley or, look out for this name, Yoshihashi Hirano, who could both come in and be the closers for that team. So I would not get my hopes up for Holland. All right, our big news from the NFL is Gronk has retired. Oh no, this is not great news, although his agent doesn't seem sure that he's going to stay retired. But anyway, this is bad news for Gronk owners in Dynasty League, Patriots fans, and just, fans of football everywhere, because Gronk will be leaving the NFL. So what do the Patriots have at tight end? Well, not much. They've got someone named Jacob Holland. He caught 9 balls for 94 yards last year. Not much there. Stephon Anderson. He caught 36 balls for 435 yards for the Titans 2 years ago. I don't know. Not great options. I would look at anyone they pick up in free agency. I'm not sure there's much left available. But they can turn even, average players into great players at the tight end position. And look for them to draft a tight end. Maybe not in the first round, but in the second round. Whoever they draft or pick up in free agency, I would want to be starting on my fantasy team next year. All right, let's move to the NFL. Let's move to the NBA, and we're going to talk about the New York Knicks and their injury woes. Not Johnny Knoxville, but our boy Knox is out with a sprained ankle. Not good for him. And Frankie Smokes just came back, and he's out now with a sprained groin. So I would bet that both Knox and Smokes are out for the rest of the season because the Knicks are in full tankapalooza. Speaking of injuries, we moved to Boston and the Celtics, where Hayward came back into the lineup, but Horford is still out, and Kyrie injured his finger even though he returned to the lineup last night. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kyrie misses a couple games, because that's just the way Kyrie is. It's nice to have Hayward back in time for the playoffs, but Horford being out has to make you nervous as a fantasy owner or Celtics fan. All right, those are the 5 things you need to know in the world of fantasy sports today. And now let's move on to some stuff you don't know. Again, this is going to be a bit of a longer show. We're going to do the top 20 NFL fantasy quarterbacks for the 2019 season, subject to change. All right, number 1. I, of course, have Patrick Mahomes. He was number 1 last year. He led the league with 417 points, which is 4 points per game higher than the second-ranking quarterback. The defense in Kansas City should also really stink again this season. They lost a ton of players, and I expect Mahomes to be in a lot of shootouts again this year, which should let him lead the league easily. Moving on to number 2, we have Aaron Rodgers. He finished 6th last year, which was a kind of a down year for him. The Packers do have a new head coach in Matt LaFleur, and hopefully that change will be enough to get Rodgers back into the top 5, because the Packers didn't do much on offense so far this offseason. Hopefully they can grab Aaron Rodgers a new weapon in the draft. All right, number 3 is Andrew Luck. Hustle and bustle Luck. Let's see. Despite the Colts having an unremarkable offseason so far, and they've got plenty of money to spend, Luck should still be an excellent next year. The thing that worries me is that the Colts are a running team. They have a good running offense and they have a good defense. It might actually be too good because Luck will not get the opportunities that someone like Mahomes will get to be in a shootout. So Luck makes me a little bit nervous. That's why I have him down at number 3 and not number 2. I still love the talent and he's just undeniably good. Number 4, Matt Ryan. Did you know he finished second last year? I wouldn't have guessed he finished second last year. Matty Ice was not that impressive to me last year. Neither were the Falcons. I just don't remember him having that kind of season, but the stats bear it out. He does have weapons and a defense that shouldn't be very good. And, he could finish in the top 5, where I have him placed number 4. And his defense did finish 25th in the league last year. Bad defenses usually mean good offensive numbers for fantasy quarterbacks. Coming in number 5, I have my first kind of surprise of the list here. I have Baker Mayfield. He finished 17th last year, but he was under one of the worst coaches in history. Now that Hugh Jackson is gone and Odell Beckham Jr. is headed to Cleveland, Mayfield should be even more dynamic this season. The only reason I am worried about this pick is the defense. The Browns finished 21st last season, but I expect them to be a lot better this year as their young players keep improving and the coaching gets better. So I worry that Cleveland may run the ball a little bit too much and might deflate Baker's numbers. Speaking of running the ball, next up I have Cam Newton. Newton finished 12th last year. He missed 2 games, and he was also, injured, and he threw like 8,000 picks in the Tampa Bay game, which all hurt his numbers. So I wish the Panthers would have picked up another offensive weapon like Odell Beckham or Antonio Brown. Anything in Carolina would have been good, but a healthy Cam Newton should mean a top 10 quarterback regardless. Okay, my next big, I don't know if you want to call it a reach, but my next big surprise here is I've got Jimmy Garoppolo coming in at number 7. So Jimmy only played 2 games last season, but I don't care. The man is handsome as hell and one heck of a quarterback. The wideouts in San Francisco are not fantastic, but they should have plenty of options coming out of the backfield to throw to and one of the best tight ends in football. I am throwing all my chips behind Jimmy Garoppolo. All right, another surprise at number 8. This time I'm picking a very bad quarterback in Fitzpatrick. He is the Miami starting quarterback. So why is he number 8 here? He finished 28th last season. So why is he in the top 10? Well, last season Fitz was 4th among quarterbacks on a per-game basis. And I expect him to start all 16 games for a Miami Dolphins team that is in full tank mode. The defense was 27th in Miami last year. There's no reason for that to improve, so Fitzpatrick should be the king of junk time points yet again. That should be good enough for a top 10 finish. Next on my list, number 9, is Drew Brees. He finished 8th last year. He is a year older, but by the end of the season, he should be just fine, even though the Saints look more and more like a running team every single year. I don't expect him to have the top 5 upside he used to, but he's still a top 10 quarterback. And rounding out our top 10 is Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks. So he's kind of like a slightly younger version of Drew Brees. Seattle loves to run the football at all costs. And despite this, I can't see keeping Wilson outside of the top 10. Again, he finished 9th last year on a team that ran the ball like every single first down. So let's move on to our quarterbacks 11 through 20. We start with Deshaun Watson coming in at number 11 despite being number 4 last year. So how did he end up at number 4 last year with only 26 passing touchdowns? Well, he only threw 9 interceptions and he had 5 rushing touchdowns. That all helps. I don't really trust Watson. He seems like he's running for his life every play and is certainly an injury risk. I actually don't recall him starting. I don't think I started him once last year in daily fantasy. And honestly, do you really expect him to play 16 games this year? I do not. That is why he's outside the top 10 for me at number 11. At number 12, I have Jared Goff. So am I too low on Jared Goff? Maybe. But for a quarterback that everyone seems to love, he averaged less than 20 fantasy points per game last year. I'd rather have Jimmy G or Baker Mayfield, who have way more upside, than Goff, who seems to be on a running play-action team. All right, number 13, I have Tom Brady. I know it seems very disrespectful to be ranking Brady this low, but he did finish 14th last year. He had an unremarkable fantasy season. He had 29 touchdowns and won the Super Bowl, but still unremarkable. He averaged 17.5 fantasy points per game, and he's getting old. He's still very handsome, but he's old. All right, moving on to number 14, I have Phillip Rivers, who was 11th last season. He's another old quarterback. Rivers didn't have the kind of season fantasy owners would have hoped for last year as he fell outside the top 10. Phillip Rivers doesn't seem like a top 10 quarterback anymore, but I can't see him falling outside the top 20 either, which is why I kind of split the difference and have him at number 14. Number 15 may also be a surprise to some people. I have Josh Allen here. I think he stinks. However, he only played 12 games last season, and he managed to have 8 rushing touchdowns. He can't be much worse as a passer this year. Last year, he only completed 52.8% of his passes. That's awful. He also threw 12 interceptions with only 10 passing touchdowns. So, I mean, could the guy even get worse? It doesn't seem possible that he could be a worse passer this year. So if he improves just a little bit, Josh Allen does have a chance to crack the top 10 in the fantasy QB ranks. I didn't want to rank him there just yet, as I gave him the number 15 spot. All right, this is where it got tricky for me. Number 16, I went with Kirk Cousins. He finished 13th last year, which seems about right. It doesn't seem like the weapons are getting any better in Minnesota. And what reason is there to think that Cousins will get any better on his own? If anything, the Vikings seem to be moving even more towards running and defense, which is not good for Cousins either, which is why I moved him down from 13 to 16th this season. Number 17 is also a bit of a reach, as I have Lamar Jackson coming in here at number 17. He finished 29th last year. Lamar Jackson is in a very similar situation to Josh Allen, so I don't think either player is going to make significant strides as a thrower, but they should both continue to rush the ball effectively. It seems possible that Jackson could rush for 1,000 yards this season. I mean, he ran for 697 last year. That's a good way to start off your fantasy season. Number 18, I went with the most boring quarterback in football, Matthew Stafford. Mr. Matthew Stafford, he plays football. He may not play football well, but he plays it often. I mean, the guy never really misses a game. For the last 8 seasons, he has started every single game. That's a lot. If he were only good, maybe the Lions would be back in the playoffs and you would have a good fantasy starter on your hands. But he's not, and they won't be. So I have Matthew Stafford ranked as number 18 as kind of my Mr. Reliable, right around the number 20 guy. All right, number 19. I know Cowboy fans are probably upset right now that Dak Prescott has not come up yet. He finished 10th last year after all, but I don't trust Dak and I don't trust the Dallas Cowboys. However, somehow he finished 10th last season. And he's never missed a game in his career either, so that's also good. He threw under 10 interceptions with only 8 last year and added 6 rushing touchdowns. I don't see either of those numbers being sustainable, which is why Dak should come in at number 19 and not number 10. All right, the last quarterback on my list is Carson Wentz. He was 23rd last year. I had lots of choices here, but I went with a guy who I think has the biggest upside. That guy is Carson Wentz. In 2017, he was a possible MVP candidate before he got injured. You all remember that? It wasn't that long ago. He really looked like the next Andrew Luck. But then we realized that Andrew Luck is still the next Andrew Luck, and Wentz could still become Andrew Luck with a little luck, but he could also, flame out, or he could win you a fantasy league. You never really know with this guy, which is why I have him at number 20. He could win you a league, or he could be injured and out for the season. Who knows? I went with not Andrew Luck, but Carson Wentz at number 20. Some honorable mentions that I considered for number 20 were Eli Manning, but he's old and bad. Big Ben Roethlisberger, he might retire mid-season. Trubisky from the Bears, I don't know. It doesn't seem like when he throws the ball, it goes where he wants it to. So I didn't want to pick him. Carr is young and he stinks and he never throws the ball deep ever. Keenum is old and he kind of stinks and he's playing in Washington this year. And Jameis Winston is the guy that I really considered for this spot versus Wentz. However, what would you put your money on first here? Him being injured, suspended, benched? All three could conceivably happen in one season. I do not trust that Winston will start more than, say, 13 games this year. So, those are my top 20 for right now. We'll see what happens in the draft. We'll see what happens if there's any trades or anything like that. And we will be back tomorrow for the top 5 things that are happening in the world of fantasy sports. Be sure to go to www.mathradio.com to pick up an online math course for your kids ages 7 through 17 for as little as $9.99. Please give us a rating and review on iTunes, like the show on YouTube, tell a friend, tell your sister, tell your mother, tell anyone you like, and we will be back tomorrow. See you then. Bye.